Hello students. So all welcome students. Good afternoon for this session. The small session that we are going to conduct for direct tax in this particular week, so as to complete your remaining particular part of the syllabus. So students, in the context of our discussion now, uh, international taxation part C is what primarily I am going to take it forward for all of you. In this context, I think till yesterday, if you all are aware that we have all discussed till our yesterday point, we have discussed across two section 90 and 91. Oh, sorry, we are supposed to start with 1991. What we have discussed. Good afternoon, Sudesh, Divya, all of you. What exactly, students, so far we have discussed? I'll just quickly run through them. As the discussion went across, first of all, with the residential status. Good afternoon to all of you. So first, as we had the discussion in respect of the residential status, in that I told you about keep an eye on the individual part as well as on the foreign company part. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Pavitra, Navneet, Triyambak, Surbhi, Mansi, Shubham, CB Thakur. So students, once the residential status was done, the second particular part was about the income, which when an income will be deemed to accrue or rise in India. Section 911. Section 911, Roy, Pavan, Triyambak. 911 is what we have discussed, in which case there was a case of a business connection that was a more important particular part, and along with that the indirect transfer. These two aspects, students, we have discussed in our particular lecture altogether. So those were about 911. I told you, students, and I'm repeating this particular point again. 911 only talks about income, whereas all the remaining particular clause of section 9 are also equally making an emphasis on the categorization of the income, starting off with 912, 913, that was in respect of salary. Thereafter 915, 6 and 7 for interest, royalty and FTS. For interest, royalty and FTS. So that is how it was to be considered, Denny and Uma. So that is what we have discussed in this regard. So what I told you about those specific provision was, the first thing is about the fact that you need to do the characterization of the amount, that whether that particular amount can it be characterized as a salary income or as an interest or as a royalty or as an FTS. So that characterization was a critical factor. Once the characterization was done, the second step that we have to then look into it is when that income will be deemed to accrue or rise in India. So the test in respect of 912, like services rendered in India, will make the salary income under 912 as deemed to accrue or rise in India. Same if you look upon to 915, 6 and 7 for the interest, royalty and FTS. So first thing we need to see who is the payer of the amount, and depending on the payer we will then ascertain what, when the income is deemed to accrue or rise in India. Now a very important conclusion for 5, 6 and 7 was that once it is freeze that these three income are deemed to have accrued or rise in India, then it will be immaterial to determine further whether the non-resident recipient of these income, does he have any business connection or a place of residence or a place of business in India, or whether he has rendered the services in India. All these are the irrelevant consideration. So that is one very important observation that we had, students, as far as that section 915, 6 and 7 was concerned. And that is the reason why we concluded that even in offshore services, for say fees for offshore technical services will be chargeable under the Act if it satisfies the criteria laid down under the provision of section 916, 915, 6 or 7. The third category, which was about what? The rate of tax, the assessment. How the assessment would be made. So we have discussed so far as the interest income is concerned. For that, there is a special rate under 115A that would be applicable. If those conditions are not satisfied of 115A, then it will be subject to a normal rate of tax. Similarly, for royalty and FTS, we have the assessment which is either on a net basis, that is under 44DA, or the assessment would be on a gross basis, that is under 115A. This will depend upon, for royalty and FTS students, this will depend upon the existence of P. So if the P exists, then in that case the assessment will be on a net basis under section 144DA. If it doesn't exist, then it will switch to 115A. So therefore students, even this particular point is very critical for the discussion purpose. Now let's start with this particular point. In this context students, herein the discussion that we had so far, so therefore we ended up our discussion with section 115 BBA. That was our last discussion for non-resident sports person, isn't it? So this was our last discussion in our yesterday's session. Now we proceed further primarily into the double taxation avoidance agreement. So in this context, in this particular context, Srinivas, Shreya, Akshat, herein, Chidrup Jain. So let's look upon to this particular part now. Students, here, this part MCQ, very important, economic double taxation and jurisdictional double taxation. So economic double taxation students is like, I have given the example also herein, that primarily dividend income, on that the company pays DDT. The dividend income, on that the company pays DDT. Now the same amount when received by the shareholder, in fact, if to avoid the consequence of a economic double taxation, that the act itself, the domestic law or the income tax act itself provides for what? The exemption. So therefore the domestic law or the income tax act itself provides for the exemption. Another example is about the partnership firm. The firm, on the profit, they are charged to income tax, and the same profit when distributed to the partners accordingly, to avoid the economic double taxation, to avoid what? The economic double taxation, that under the act we have got the exemption under section 10(2)(a). Under the act we have got the exemption under section 10(2)(a). This is addressed by the act itself. Now what is a jurisdictional double taxation? That we all are aware now. Jurisdictional double taxation necessarily arises from the fact that one of the particular country happens to be the country of resident, another country happens to be the country of source. So primarily because of this very reason, that one country happens to be the country of resident, another country happens to be the country of source, this leads to what? The jurisdictional double taxation. And therefore a jurisdictional double taxation, this primarily will be addressed either under section 90 or under section 91. 90 provision students would be applicable in the case where there is a bilateral agreement, in which case the agreement is entered so as to provide the relief from such double taxation. The agreement is between the two countries. So therefore that is the DTAA when it exists. In that particular case we will then go to section 90. If such agreement doesn't exist, then in that case the recourse has to be made under section 91. 91 therefore is referred as what students? As a unilateral agreement. So 91 unilateral agreement, or the DTAA, which is section 90, which is a bilateral agreement. So either it is 90 or 91. However students, the manner in which the relief in respect of jurisdictional double taxation is provided under the act is made through what? It is made through the manner in which the jurisdictional double taxation is provided is made through rule number 128. And rule number 128 talks about what? The relief is through the foreign tax, the tax credit method. So what we have done students in India, we have applied the tax credit as a concept. So we don't grant an exemption. There is no exemption in respect of the foreign income on which there was a double taxation. You don't give the exemption, but you play the credit concept. So it is a credit method that has to be looked upon students very carefully. Now what is this credit method? Rule number 128 students. Be careful all of you about this rule number 128. This rule should have been targeted by now in the examination, but somehow the other students, ICI has been evasive in asking the question from this particular rule itself. Let's have a look to rule number 128, the foreign tax credit method. Rule 128 is what we are going to touch upon now. So again, I am repeating to this part, students. Search 112. Let's first look upon to this one right now. Here in students, rule number 128 in this particular context. Rule number 128, foreign tax credit. Now, in the context of the foreign tax credit, which has been there, please pay attention to this particular proposition. So what happens, students, is like this. First of all, please try to understand the entire concept of double taxation, which I'll give you to you from two case study. I'll take first the case study number 1. There is the non-resident, say Mr. John is a resident of USA. Mr. John is a resident of USA, so he has earned an income in India, say interest income in India. And therefore, as per 9-month-5, this particular interest income is deemed to accrue rise in India. This particular interest income is deemed to accrue rise in India. Fine. Now, in this context, even the same interest income will be charged to tax in his home country. That is the country of his residence, which is USA. Being resident, definitely it will also be charged in his home country. This will give rise to double taxation, isn't it? Now, if it gives rise to double taxation, then we will check the existence, whether the treaty is there or not. And if the treaty is there, now what is the kind of a language which the treaty will give? Now, please be careful, students, to all of you I'm talking about it, whether it is an old course students or it's a new course students. ICAI also have the ability, and it has asked, in fact, in the old course, what they have given you certain paragraph of the treaty. In the old course, the question they have given it to you like this, certain para of the treaty, and they want you to crack the same. So you have to be very, very careful about the application of that particular treaty. So you have to read those particular paragraph and accordingly have to decide. So say for example, the treaty may provide that in my example, that this interest income will only be taxed. Will only be taxed where? Will only be taxed in the country of resident, which implies will only be taxed in USA. So if this particular treaty provision should only be taxed in USA, therefore the question arises is that whether this income will it then be taxed at all in India, when the language of the treaty says that this particular income shall only be taxed in the country of resident, which in my example is USA. So therefore, can this income be taxed at all in India? To that the answer is no. This income therefore will never ever be taxed where in India. The reason is quite clear, that the mandate is exclusively for this income to be taxed in the country of resident. And if that happens, the next question arises primarily, and this is the most important question, whether Mr. John in this example, will he have to furnish the TRC? Will he have to furnish what? The TRC. What is the TRC? The tax residency certificate. So whether Mr. John in this particular case, will he have to furnish the TRC, the tax residency certificate? And the answer to that is quickly give me the answer. Will he have to furnish the TRC in this case? Tax residency certificate. Dhruv, Shubham, both of you have given the answer. Divya, Ritika, Navneet, Sunita, CB, Neelam, Abhishek, Uttara, Surbhi, Siddesh, Siva, Komal, Rangesh, Anjali, Shraddha. Definitely, students, I think you got it right. He has to, Upasna, he has to, and it is mandatory on his part to furnish the TRC without fail. He has to furnish, students, the TRC without fail. Sneha, yes, indeed. Why is it so? Because why he has to furnish TRC? Because he has, please pay attention, he has invoked the treaty to obtain the favorable provision. He has invoked the treaty to obtain the beneficial position. And if anyone is invoking the treaty, then that person necessarily has to be the resident of either of the country. If anyone who is invoking the treaty, then that person necessarily has to be what? The resident of of any one of the two country. So in this case, Mr. John has to establish his residency, that I am invoking the treaty to obtain the beneficial provision, and this is what? This is my TRC. That it establishes that I am the resident of USA, and therefore I am entitled to invoke India USA DTAA. This TRC he will furnish to the payer of this interest income. Who is the payer? Who is the interest income primarily? So in that regard, the payer of this particular interest income, student, happens to be whom? Happens to be the Indian party, Indian resident, and therefore TRC will be furnished to him, and he will therefore not deduct the TDS. Did you all got this one? That is one thing which is there, students. Be very careful about this. Second part, let us try to tweak in the same Mr. John example. Let us try to tweak this particular case study a bit. Same Mr. John example. And what is that? Now, if the treaty says that the said income may also be taxed in the country of source, which in my example it is India, and then they give it to you, but not more than say two cases. Case number 1, 25% rate, and case number 2, say 10% rate. So they are giving you the tax rate in first case not more than 25%, and in second case not more than 10%. So this, they are talking about what? They are talking about the interest income. Okay, and in this particular situation I have told that the treaty is flexible and it allows the country of source to tax this particular income in the source country itself, but not more than the rate of tax given in case number A, 25%, in case number B, 10%. So in such particular situation, students, what will happen? In first case, 25%. Okay, now just imagine in under the act, the rate of tax is 20%. For interest income, the rate of tax is what? 20%. Whereas treaty says it should not go more than 25%. So which is the beneficial position for him? Act or the treaty? Definitely it is the treaty. Sorry, definitely it is the act. So he will go with the act to obtain this particular beneficial position. And if he is going with the act, students, then in that case, again my question to all of you is whether he will invoke India USA DTAA. Whether he will invoke India USA DTAA. In this example, treaty rate 25, act rate 20. So accordingly, 20% being the act being more beneficial, he wants to opt for 20%. Will he invoke the India USA DTAA is my question to all of you. Sorry, will he have to furnish the TRC is my question to all of you. Will he have to furnish TRC, students? Navneet, Komal, Sunita, Shubham, Vignesh, CB, Dhruv, Siddesh, Siva, Abhishek, Upasana, Veer, Sunita, Uttara, Anjali, Hitika, Siddesh. Yes, he will not be required to furnish. He will not be required to furnish TRC. Very true. And you have got hold with this point. Not required to furnish the TRC. The reason is very clear, that he has not invoked the treaty to obtain the beneficial provision. He has not invoked the treaty to obtain the beneficial provision, and since he has not invoked the treaty to obtain the beneficial provision, therefore the question of furnishing the TRC will not arise. So keep this particular proposition, students, always in mind. Did you all got this one? Fine. So this is how it has to be considered in this regard, and accordingly, students, we will say no TRC required. In the second part of this same question, if the rate as per the treaty says it should not be more than 10% in the country of source, then what happens? Then the act rate is 20%. Treaty says it should not go more than 10%. Then definitely treaty being more beneficial, then you will invoke the treaty in this particular case. And if you are invoking the treaty in this particular case, then you will go with what? 10%. Then in this case you will go with 10%, treaty being more beneficial. And if that is the reason, then TRC has to be furnished, and the answer is yes. Why TRC has to be furnished in this particular case? Because he is invoking the treaty to obtain the beneficial position. In this case, the beneficial position was the lower rate of tax, that is at 10%. So in this case, he has to furnish the TRC. So students, the bottom line goes like this, that if in any case, whenever he is wanting to invoke the treaty, in any case, whenever he wants to invoke the treaty to obtain the beneficial position, in all such case, the non-resident has to furnish TRC to the Indian payer, the payer of that particular amount in India. So that is what the obligation will arise. Fine. This was, students, case study number 1, where the country of resident is outside India and the country of source is in India. The second example would be when the country of residence is in India and the country of source is outside India. This can happen, say for example, in Mr. Patel's case. Mr. Patel is a resident of India. Country of residence is India. Country of source is USA. From USA, Mr. Patel, who is a resident of India, from USA, he is earning interest income. And now that interest income, as just we have to analyze, will be charged to tax in USA being the country of source, and also it will be charged to tax in India being the country of resident. Double taxation arises, isn't it? Double taxation will arise, and therefore is there a treaty between both the two countries? And the answer is yes. If the answer is yes, then what is the treaty position? So let's see the treaty position. So treaty position is, first case, situation 1, that the said income, said interest income will only be charged to tax in the country of resident. Such interest income will only be charged to tax in the country of resident. And if that is the case, then it will only be charged to tax in India. USA cannot touch this income, isn't it? Now that is, India will have an exclusive right to tax this particular income. Fine, because treaty says what? The said income shall be taxed only in the country of resident. If this is the language, then only India would be the one who will have the right to tax this. USA can't touch this particular income. Fine. Now in this context, whether there will be any double taxation relief that will be available, and the answer is no. There is no requirement of a double taxation relief. Why? Because the income as per the treaty was saved from double taxation. Because the income as per the treaty was saved from double taxation itself. So therefore, there is no double taxation at the treaty level itself. This was being spared. That only in the country of resident that the income would be taxed. Let's take a walk across the second situation, where the treaty says what? That the said income, which income? Interest income, may also be taxed. Where? May also be taxed in the country of source. May also be taxed in the country of source. And they will give you the rate, whatever it be. So if this is what it says, that it may also be taxed in the country of source, then in that case what happens? USA being the country of source will tax this income. What about India being the country of resident? Now, what treaty does, students? Please be careful. Treaty only talks about, if at all it has to talk about, the allocation right to the source country. Whether the source country, whether you will have the taxing right over the income primarily, that is what the treaty in fact tried to essentially do. That it tries to allocate the taxing right to whom? To the source country. Once it gives that right, in my first situation, it didn't give the right to the source country. It said that exclusively it will be with the country of resident. But in this second situation, I am saying that the treaty says that it may also be taxed in the country of source, in which case it is giving also a taxing right to the source country at a particular maximum rate. So it will also provide the maximum rate up to which the income can be taxed in the country of source. Country of source in this example being USA will always tax this income. What then India will do? Then treaty will leave up to India to decide, which is the country of resident, to decide how you want to give the relief. Now there are, students, two methods of giving the relief. One method is the exemption method and another method is the tax credit method. So India has followed the tax credit method. India never gives the exemption method. Just keep this proposition always in mind. India never gives the exemption method. It always follows the tax credit method, and the tax credit is given through rule number 128. The tax credit is given through rule number 128. Now let's have a look to what this rule number 128 says. Let's have a look. So first of all, you should also try to understand when I'm going to refer rule number 128. This is also equally very important, that if the treaty is there between the two countries, then in what case I'm going to refer rule number 128? If the treaty is there, this is the time when you have to refer the treaty. Which is the time when the resident is the taxpayer should be a resident in India. He has got income in the foreign country as well. The source country is a foreign location. Treaty says that the said income may also be taxed. Treaty says what? The said income may also be taxed in the country of source itself, that is the foreign country. In this case, the source country will tax this particular income. The resident country, that is India, what they will do? They will not give an outright exemption. The relief is not through an exemption method. The relief is through a tax credit method. So this is a situation when the treaty exists. How the tax credit method will be invoked, or when the tax credit method will be invoked. So you should know always that when the tax credit method will invoke in the case where the treaty exists. So this is precisely the situation which I have already told to all of you. So foreign tax credit, country for which it is available in respect of a country with which India has entered into DTAA, with whom India has the DTAA, taxes covered under that tax treaty. So whatever are the taxes which are being covered in that tax treaty, that particular taxes will be subject to the credit as per rule 128. What about the next one? In respect of any other country. What do you mean by any other country? That is with whom India does not have any treaty. With whom India does not have any treaty. So if this is the case in respect of any other country with whom India does not have any other treaty, then what will be the position? The tax payable under the law in force in that country in the nature of income tax. So the tax payable under the law in force in that country. So whatever is a tax which is payable as per the law in force in that particular country in the nature of income tax. So even where treaty doesn't exist, whatever is the income tax that is charged in the foreign country, that income tax will be subject to the tax credit under this particular rule. So therefore I can say that this rule number 128, will be applied both for section 90 case and also for section 91 relief. Both for section 90 as well as for section 91. 90 is when the treaty exists, 91 is when the treaty doesn't exist. In both the cases, rule number 128 will be made applicable. Eligibility of the claim. Only a resident can claim the FTC. So this concept of FTC, students, will be applicable when what? When India is what? India is COR. This concept of FTC is applicable only in the case when India is what? India is the FTC. India is a COR. So only when the India is a COR, that is the country of resident, that this particular concept would be made applicable. Fine, students. Now the next particular part would be the tax should have been paid in the foreign country. The tax should have been paid in the foreign country. That is, it should have been paid, not payable. Primarily, it should be paid, not payable. That is the status. Whether that paid could be either through a self-assessment mode or through a TDS mode or advanced tax as in those countries, whatever be the situation. But the foreign tax has to be paid. Only then the credit can be availed. And the third one, credit should be claimed for corresponding income offered to tax. Obviously, it can never happen that only you are taking the credit without offering that income as a part of your total income. So if you haven't captured that income, that foreign income, as your part of your total income, can you even think of claiming the credit of this foreign tax paid? And the answer is no. So this is one thing that students, you should always keep in mind. Now, foreign tax credit is available in respect of please be careful, this is an MCQ question. Income tax, surcharge and cess only. Definitely therefore for not penalty and interest. Okay, so this would be your MCQ based question. Okay, so only for income tax, surcharge and for cess only that the credit can be available. Now computation of the credit, compute for each source of income. For each source of income you need to take the credit. You have to calculate the credit which is lower of what? Tax payable under the act and the foreign tax payable. Lower of the two primarily is what will be the amount of the credit that you are going to take. Now students, in this context, so whenever, like for example, I have seen the return of Shah Rukh Khan 2008-2009, that was the time. So that time this rule also was not there, but the way the credit were being claimed, so that for one of the case, for the technical particular advice, the matter came to EY on certain particular DTAA reference. His return, students, I can tell you herein of Shah Rukh Khan, which I have seen personally, when he takes the credits and all. So like in UK, primarily, he had 4 sources at that time, primarily 4 source of income, primarily. So therefore, through that 4 source, for each source, he has to claim the credit. Same UAE, another 7-8 sources of income. For that particular source, again, for each source, separate credit. Then he had traveled across the world for various, they perform in various countries. So he had traveled to various countries for the performance. And therefore, for those stage performances that he got, there were again many countries which was involved for that reason. So you can just imagine approximately there were around 12 to 14 foreign jurisdiction, from where, and each jurisdiction 3 to 4 source that he had minimum, and through which he was earning the income. So just imagine the kind of calculation of the relief, the tax credit relief that he has to take into account. I'm just talking about him. You can just imagine about other particular dignitaries and these kind of the high profile, high net worth individuals, the kind of credits that they are going to take in this regard. Anyway, so students, that is what it is. And finally students, this particular point, which is about what? The credit shall be determined by the conversion. The conversion of what? The conversion of what, students? The conversion of the currency of payment of foreign tax at the telegraphic transfer buying rate on the last day of the month immediately preceding the month in which such tax has been paid or deducted. So that is how it would be. Yes, Dhruv, I'll just come to that particular part which has been there. Yeah, Emmanuel Silk, that is a showroom, I suppose. I think that is a showroom in Kochi, if I'm not mistaken, Siddesh. Anyway, students, herein problem now in the ICI calculation, students, if you see, you have to be very careful about ICI solutions. Unfortunate is the scenario of ICI. If you see, students, ICI solutions and all, they have so far, what I have seen in the solution, they are not taking source wise. They are not taking what? Source wise, country wise they do. Like if you remember, there is one question in your module also, that Kamlesh, who has got this royalty income 80QQB, is also there in that particular question. So therefore 80QQB, that royalty, if you all remember that, in this question there were 2 countries, if I am not mistaken, country X and country Y. So definitely there was country wise they have done the calculation. Country wise they had done the calculation. But what I am trying to target, students, is this. In this particular context, students, be careful. There you will find that the source wise calculation was not done. So ICAT is not technically following in the solution rule number 128. But this rule being there, because it's a very recent rule, it's not that this rule is a very old rule. My thought is like this, that students, just primarily do one thing. You just ensure that if the question they ask in the examination that follow as per rule 128, the credit has to be for 128. Then what you are going to do for each of this particular source. So therefore I give you an example also. Let's take one example. I'll give one example so to highlight this particular point. So here let's take this example in this context. So Mr. Patel, in USA, and this is UK. In USA, in UK, he earned interest income. Okay, 1 lakh. So you can also quickly copy the format in which the things would be given. 1 lakh. Interest income is 1 lakh, and the TDS deducted was say 10%. Fine. USA, primarily he had royalty. So the royalty income, say 5 lakhs. TDS 20%, and FTS income 10 lakhs. TDS 10%. So in USA he has got two sources. So students, and here in Indian income primarily, say this is 25 lakhs. Fine. So in this context, students, if this is the data, so when you calculate the total income of Mr. Patel, you will go something like this. Say Indian income, whatever be the head, you will take to the appropriate head. Fine. And foreign income, I say this is I in IFOS, all the three. So interest, royalty, and FTS. So interest 1 lakh, royalty royalty 5 lakhs, and FTS 10 lakhs. So herein 16 lakhs is the calculation. Thereafter the total herein, say total income is 41 lakhs. Okay. Tax liability till cess, surcharge will not be there. Tax liability till cess. I'm just assuming this particular part here so as to just expedite instead of calculating actually. So just for the time being, I'm just assuming this to be so 30% of 41 of 31 lakhs. Say 10 lakhs, student, just for rough sakes. So till cess it is say 10 lakhs. Okay, you can all calculate later on. Doesn't matter. So in this regard, then thereafter the average rate. Now Indian rate or the average rate that you can say is Indian rate or the average rate you can say 10 lakhs divided by 41 lakhs 100. How much is the percentage? Can anyone give me the answer? Now this 10 lakhs is an assumed figure. Again, don't mistake. I'm repeating this one again. You say, sir, how come you got this 10 lakhs? I'm just assuming for this purpose of simplicity and to expedite our workings. So just only to expedite. What is the percentage? 10 lakh divided by 41 into 100%. Give me the percent quickly. 24.39. All the students are saying 24.39. Perfect. Okay. So 24.39. Now students, you will give the relief. 24.39. Don't let it be 24.39 because Siddhesh, I think just I wanted to show the steps. So the steps is the only thing which I am coming here. Now giving you the relief. Relief students here. Now in this case, under section 90, read with 128. Under section 90, read with 128. This is how you should do it. 90 read with 128 because the treaty exists. Fine, each country. So UK, each country, each source. So you will go like this, primarily, in this context. So 1 lakh is the income, and on this one, so 1 lakh is the income which is subject to double tax, and then thereafter 10% or 24.9%. So you'll choose to 10%. So accordingly 10,000. Fine. The second one, USA. In the context of USA, there are two income. So in that connect for this thing, again 20% you will take for royalty, and FTS you will take 10%. So royalty primarily here in this 5 lakh into 20 and 10 lakh into 10. So therefore you go for each of this particular rate. So one here and then after one here. So students, in this context, total relief will be there and balance will be the tax payable. So please show the working for each source. That is precisely what I wanted to say to all of you. Now students, there is one twist which you should always be careful about it. Somebody can argue, sir, what if the question says that royalty is also like 80 QQB, what we learned yesterday? Yes, if that is the case, students, then 80 QQB, maximum deduction, students, you get 3 lakhs. Maximum deduction you get what? You get of rupees 3 lakhs. So if you have got maximum deduction of 3 lakhs, then your income which is subject to double taxation is not 5 lakh. The income which is subject to double taxation is only now 2 lakhs. You say, how can you say that? Why not? Because in my total income, finally what entered in my total income is the royalty income of rupees 2 lakhs. After claiming the chapter 60 reduction, finally what entered into my total income on which the tax rate was applied was only rupees 2 lakhs. So how much portion of the foreign income, was subject to double taxation? Only 2 lakhs. 2 lakhs. So only 2 lakhs is the portion of the foreign income which was subject to double taxation. And hence, if this is any of the deduction that you would have taken, under the act, like I gave the example of chapter 6A. Another example can also be built upon, like house property you have got outside India from which you are getting a rent, and on the rent itself the TDS has been deducted by the tenant. So on the gross rent the TDS is getting deducted, but what happens in India, the rent is subject to a flat 30% deduction, and maybe other deduction in the form of municipal tax, and maybe other deduction in the form of interest payment. So after claiming those deduction, that net amount only forms part of your total income on which the tax rate is applied. So that net amount only is the income which is subject to double taxation. That net amount only is the income which is subject to double taxation. Do you all get this one? And therefore only that net amount will qualify for this relief calculation. So you have to be very careful about that particular aspect. Don't take your eyes off from this. And now students, primarily, may I request to all of you, this Kamlesh question which is there in your ICI module, ensure to do that question. That is one of the very good question which takes into account those deduction part which I was talking about it. Yes, in the MTP also I would have given it. So definitely in the MTP also you would have gone through the same. Shubham, that is what I am saying, that if you are involving 80 QQB, then 2 lakhs. Depending upon the question. But if say I am getting a royalty for what? For school textbook. So school textbook 80 QQB is not there, isn't it? So that is how it has to be considered. I hope that all of you have got to know the approach. That is very important for all of you. Now only thinking, students, only part that you have to do is what? Only thing that you have to do now quickly, that Kamlesh question, you will have to go and solve it. You have to go and solve it. I hope that all of you will do this. It's an important one, students. So in this case, this important point I had to discuss with all of you, and that is the reason why this particular thing is being discussed. Now, what is the query that you are asking? Akshat Shah. Sir, what if my income from two sources, one shown income and another one shown loss in one country, then loss credit, will it be available in what treatment? Akshat, there is the same question. That Kamlesh question, if you go to that Kamlesh question in the ICI module, that if you have got a source, loss, then they also give you that adjustment, they will give you a note that the loss in that foreign country is not subject to set off as per the law of the foreign country. This is also that they will say. The loss from that source, from that foreign source, is not allowed to be set off as per the law of the foreign country. This information also they will give it to you. Then what you are supposed to do in that particular case? Will you keep quiet? No, you will not keep quiet. You will say what? Do hell with that particular thing. Once that income is getting assessed, because you are a resident in India, world income will be assessed. And if world income would be assessed, then in that case, even that loss will be coming into your computation of total income, and the computation has to be done in the manner laid down under the Act. So if the Act provides for the set off of the loss, then you have to give the set off of the loss as per the Act. You will only be guided by the restrictions which are laid down under the Act towards the set off of the losses, which therefore will imply that in this regard, like speculative loss can only be adjusted against speculative profit, so on and so forth. Long-term capital loss only against LTCG, like that. But other than that, family, there is no other restriction. Then please go ahead and do the set off. Just this information that has been given to you in the question, that the loss which is from the foreign source, the loss from the foreign source is not allowed to be set off in the law of the foreign country. Who cares? Because I am a resident, I have to compute now my total income in the manner laid down under the Act. So I have to go with the restriction which are there under the Act. And if under the Act there is no restriction, family, then nobody can bind me on this particular thing that you cannot do the set off. I will do the set off. Now, once you do the set off, again that will reduce what? Reduce my double tax income, because that foreign source loss has diluted my total income. So if it has diluted my total income, so to that extent, what will be the case? You will say that to that extent, my double taxation, primarily the doubly tax income has been reduced. The doubly tax income has been reduced because it has diluted my total income, and therefore what you will do, that loss will be reduced from that foreign income in that foreign country. From that foreign income in that foreign country, you will reduce that particular loss, and therefore the net foreign income from that foreign country, the net foreign income from that foreign country only will be subject to the relief. Only will be subject to the relief. This is how you will do this. I hope that you have got hold with this particular point. Please solve that question of Kamlesh. In that, this loss part is also been covered. That's a really very good question. How to compute relief? Uma Gandhi. How to compute relief when with one country DTAA is there and with another country no DTAA. So Uma, with one country DTAA is there, so you go with 90. Okay, so therefore in that case, like in the same example which I have given it to you just now, this example, the same example, supposingly I would have said that with UK we don't have treaty. Supposingly I would have said what? With UK I wouldn't have treaty. So what I would have done? I would have written here, with UK I would have written what? I would have written 91 read with 128. I would have written 91 read with 128. And for USA what I would have written? 90 read with 128. But the best part, Uma, is that for both of them the treatment is the same. For both of them, the treatment is the same, because the manner of calculation is given in rule number 128. So that will not change. I hope that this has answered to your question. Navneet, tax relief will be available only for net. Yeah, Navneet, very true. It will be available only for the net foreign in tax income. I hope that, students, all of you have got hold with this point. With this, we have done with this particular part, students. Fine. Now, students, this particular part is a very important question for theory. Very important question for theory, students. In fact, old course also, new course also. Some portion of treaty, even old course students are expected to know. New course students, there are something more. What is that something more? I have already told that for new course students, for the benefit of the new course students, will be putting a small 1 hour video, 1.5 hours video. I'll just put it across. Okay, one chart probably I'm having. So in that chart, I'll just put it across 1.5 hours video only to be referred by the new course. But this theory is applicable for both new course as well as old course. Now students, there are two types of question which has been asked in the theoretical form, outrightly a theoretical question, and that is about what is P and what is the significance of the P. What is P and what is the significance of the P? So P, students, first of all, primarily is nothing but what? It is nothing but magic. It is nothing but fixed place of business through which the business of an enterprise is wholly or partly carried on. Okay, you have to remember like fixed place and three things. The treaty provides the P as a concept. They are giving you three criteria to identify whether the P exists or not. Whether a non-resident, can he said to have a P in the source country? Because only if he has got a P in the source country, that the non-resident's business income, not royalty income, business income, that the non-resident business income is charged to tax. That the non-resident business income is charged to tax where? In the source country. Which is the source country? Whatever is the source country in that as per the treaty. So therefore, how do you identify that the P of that non-resident exists in the source country? There are three criteria. One is the physical criteria. That is to say, my office, my branch, my depot, that is known as physical criteria. Second is, students, the subjective criteria. That I don't have my own office or my own branch, but I have the right to use that particular office or a particular branch or a premises. Like for example, that yesterday we were discussing that foreign company had sent its employees for a project for its Indian client. And as per the terms of the project, what the foreign company would have said, they would have said that, look, for doing this work, I want that I want what? I want that you should exclusively assign us what? One building in your site where our foreign employees will be working, sitting and working in that particular building. In fact, students, for Reliance, this Reliance Petroleum, for their oil rig, there is in Mumbai, Navi Mumbai side, there is this Ghansoli plant in which one entire building is reserved only for whom? Only for the foreign technical personnels, because the technology to maintain that oil rig is only with the foreign country. India don't have the technology. So these are the people who are monitoring the oil rigs, the functioning of the oil rigs, which is installed somewhere in Bombay High, that is in the EZ. So therefore, that entire building, what is the case? So that building is not of the foreign company, but the foreign company, does it have an exclusive right to use that particular building? And the answer is yes. So if that is the kind of the building for which you have the exclusive right to use the same, then it can be said what? That your PE exists in India. Your PE exists in India. This is what we can say, that the foreign company's PE exists in India. This is, students, the subjective criteria. So one is the physical criteria, my building, my branch, my office. That is the physical criteria. Another is the subjective criteria. And the third one, students, is the functional criteria. What is the functional criteria? That I have got an agent who perform on behalf of me in the source country. So through a existence of an agent who act mainly or wholly on behalf of you in the source country, we can say that there exists a PE, the non-resident PE in the source country. So this is the three things that you should always understand. That first of all, what is the meaning, fixed place, and then what is the criteria of identifying the PE, the existence of the PE in the source country. The identifying factor is the physical criteria, the subjective criteria, and the third one is the functional criteria. This is primarily how it has to be identified. Now what about the significance of the PE? So significance, I already told you, in the treaty, students, in the treaty, you will find that a non-resident business income, the non-resident's business income will be taxed in the source country only if what? Only if it has got a PE in the source country. Only if it has got the PE in the source country. So this is your permanent establishment, students. Just be very careful about the same. Apart from this tie break rule also I think 2 times it has been asked in the question also. This tie break rule, which has been there. And one question, practical questions are also there. Mr. Arif questions, if you remember, that question was already there. So here in students, just focus on this tie break rule. Now what is this tie break rule, students? Now Dhruv has asked what is the difference between PE and the business connection. Per se, Dhruv, if you have to look from the PE in this context, PE and the business connection. PE is a definition given in the treaty. In this context, and the business connection, students, business connection is particularly a definition under the Act. Here, business connection, as per the definition is concerned, they have not defined in an exhaustive manner. The term business connection, they have just kept it open for interpretation, because the definition of business connection is done in an inclusive manner. So definitely it can create some sort of an ambiguity, because the definition is in inclusive manner, whereas the other particular part, the PE, is a very exhaustive definition. The definition of PE is quite an exhaustive in nature. So that is how the fundamental difference will be all about between the two. Okay, so that is how the difference will be looked upon in this particular context. Now in this regard, herein, the problem and the solution, if you see over here, students, can you just have a look to the problem and the solution in this context? What is this tie break rule? The tie break rule in this particular part. So the tie break rule, which is there in this particular part herein, when you become a resident of both the country, when you become what? Resident of both the country, that is the tie break rule. How that is possible? This is very much possible. In India, students, you can become a resident on the basis of what? In India, you can become a resident on the basis of the this test, the 182 days test. I'm talking about the individual. Same individual can be a green card holder. Same individual can be a green card holder, and being a green card holder, he is also a resident of USA. This is a tie break. Now, in that country, students, to invoke a treaty, you have to be what? You have to be considered as a resident in one country, and the other country should be considered as a country of your source. Only then the treaty can be invoked. Treaty cannot be invoked if you are resident in both the country, because then both the country will say world income will be taxed. And that is the reason why this create a challenge, because the test of residentship is laid down separately in each of the respective domestic tax laws. So therefore each country in their domestic tax law has a distinct residential status test. So India has got a distinct residential status test, US will have a distinct, China has got distinct, and primarily because of that reason this problem will arise, whereby you can be considered as what? As a resident of both the country. In fact, students, this Finance Act 2020, which is actually not there in your attempt, has introduced another concept of stateless person. A stateless person, a new concept is introduced. What is that concept? That concept is when you will never be a resident of any country. That is also a possibility, isn't it? You will never be a resident of any country. So that is equally a possibility. How to target that? That concept has been captured in FA20. Leave that because it is not necessary for your exam. So in this context, students, with this scenario that exists, wherein you are a resident of both the country, the treaty will then have given you certain test. On the basis of test, which you have to go sequentially, you have to find out finally the effective place of your residence. You have to find out finally the effective place of your residence, so that that country will be considered as the country of resident, and the other country will then be considered as what? As a country of source. And the other country will be considered as the country of source. This is how it has to be considered. Did you all got this one? So place of permanent home, center of vital interest. So this is sequential, like you permanent home, both the countries, if you have possibilities are there. You have a home in India also, and you have got home in USA also. So then point number A does not give you the answer. Then go to point B. And what is this point number B? Center of vital interest, economic and personal, where you have the vital interests situated, whether it is USA or it is in India. On that basis, you will get your answer. If you say that equally it is placed in both the countries, if it is equally placed in both the countries, then you go to point number C, habitual abode, where you habitually reside. You say, I habitually reside in both the places. If that is what is a person that you are, check your nationality through your passport. Okay, there are some countries wherein the dual citizenship exists. So I can be the holder of passport in the two countries. If that is the case, then no answer can be taken further. They will say, then do one thing. Kindly call CBDT and the US tax authority. Both of them, let they decide primarily as to which country you should be treated as resident, and therefore for the other country you will be considered as non-resident. So therefore this is the MAP procedure. The authorities of both the country will finally take a call as to for which country you will be considered as what? A resident, so that the other country will be considered as a non-resident. Non-discriminatory article, students. This part is also one time they have asked this particular question. I think you are aware of it. In treaty, students, there is a specific article which says that a non-resident cannot be discriminated in your domestic laws. A non-resident cannot be discriminated in your domestic law vis-a-vis whom? Vis-a-vis a resident of your country. So he should not be discriminated with the resident of your country in your domestic law. Now there is a challenge here which the government has identified, that we have got for foreign company a tax rate of 40%, whereas for a domestic company a tax rate is that of 30%. So somebody can again put an allegation on us stating that there is a discrimination that is happening between a foreign and the domestic company. So therefore, through an explanation 1 to section 93, a specific provision has been introduced. What it says? It says this, that it provides that the charge of tax in respect of a foreign company at a rate higher than the rate. At a rate what? At a rate higher than the rate at which the company is chargeable shall not be regarded as less favorable charge or levy of tax in respect of such foreign company. So there is a specific provision, students, which has been given in this particular context. And that exactly how? In this particular context, this is how it has to be considered. Now in this regard, students, and this is quite correct also. Why it is correct? Somebody will say, sir, but it is illogical to write like this. No, please understand, in this context, please understand on one thing, and that is about that the Indian government, in India, the domestic company has got a higher surcharge. You will all agree to this point, isn't it? The domestic company is having what? A higher surcharge, which is not the case. Which is not the case with whom? Which is not the case with a foreign company. The higher surcharge factor. Similarly, the DDT angle, students, the DDT angle also you will find the same thing. Who has to pay the liability of DDT? It is the domestic company, not the foreign company. So if you consider all these factors, obviously we can say and conclude that the foreign company is the one who has got the higher amount of consequence or the higher burden of taxes, and hence please don't look into the domestic company has got a higher incidence of taxes. The domestic company has the higher incidence of tax. So please don't look into the base rate and take a conclusion that there is a discrimination that is happening between the foreign company and the domestic company. No discrimination is happening between the two. And students, the last particular point which is there is the equalization levy. Again, very important concept which is there in this context. Although it's an easy one, I can also sense that students, they can also ask you an equalization levy in the form of an adjustment to the total income question. Adjustment to what? To the total income question. You'll say, sir, how come adjustment to the total income question? So let me give you an idea behind this. Like a domestic company or resident, A Limited, net profit has been given to you, and you are supposed to compute what? You are supposed to then compute the total income. So therefore A Limited net profit has been given to you, and thereafter the total income has to be worked out. So in such particular case, they will give you one adjustment that paid during the previous year. What? To whom they have paid? You have paid during the previous year to a non-resident, and by paying to a non-resident. Who is that non-resident? The non-resident is primarily the one who does not have a P in India, who does not have any permanent establishment in India, and the payment is in nature of, say, advertisement service. And on that payment, the NR has not, deducted the TDS. On that payment, the NR has not deducted the TDS. So if this is what they will mention to all of you students, in that case you will say what? That yes, in this situation, the said particular expenditure, will that be disallowed? And the answer is yes. Will that be disallowed? And the answer is yes. So this is one of the ways that these people can target the question. Plus also do ensure students that threshold limit, I think all of you are aware of the threshold limit. How much is the threshold limit? 1 lakh. So it should also exceed what? Exceed 1 lakh. So this disallowance part which has been there, this can be targeted. This particular disallowance, this particular part can be targeted. So you can just be very careful about this particular part. Okay. That disallowance can happen in this particular context. 40AIB. 40AIB. So this is one thing which I want that all of you have to be very careful. Secondly, students, what would be the consequence? Even this part, students, MCQ, you be ready. They will target the interest calculation. They will ask you an interest. Calculate the amount of interest. Penalty is in any case easy, but calculate what? The amount of interest. And this is what you will do. The amount of interest. 1% per month or part thereof. By the way, by when you have to make the payment? Within 7 days. It's just like a TDS part. 7 days of the next month, you need to make the payment of that particular equalization levy, which you have to deduct at the time of payment. At the time of payment. Okay, the rate of equalization levy is 6%. Please don't load with the cess and all. Here, cess and all is not to be made applicable in this context. Did you all got this one, students? So this is how it has to be considered in this particular scenario. So students, we have done with this particular part in this context. Now I will now be open to the queries and all which you may have in this context. So students, in this context, any queries that you all have? Yes, CB has asked one query that interest calculation, will it be from the 8th day? Yes. This is not your other thing, the way we have discussed for TDS. It's not for the TDS part. So students, you have done with this particular part now completely. Now, only thing that you have to do is that today I have given you one particular question as an assignment. Which was that question? Kamlesh question. Okay. Apart from, I hope that you also have done it MTP1 and MTP3. These two MTPs also you would have done it. Fine, students. And MTP videos are also being up in that regard. Now tomorrow, students, I have given in my particular Telegram channel, I have given in my Telegram channel, primarily. What I have given to you in a Telegram channel? The MAT. MAT, students, I hope that all of you have got hold with the MAT chart, so which I have distributed. So this is what I'm going to start in my tomorrow's small session of 1.5 hours that we are going to have it primarily. So that is one thing that I'm going to do tomorrow in the tomorrow's class, and we will look into that MAT concept. And along with this MAT concept, students, there is some foreign tax credit, what we have discussed just now. There is a MAT and FTC concept that is also going to emerge, which I am going to discuss with you in this case. Shubham is asking, sir, after seeing you PGBP lecture, we can directly start with question. Yes. Directly, Shubham, now question. Practical question is what you can refer. After going through the PGBP revision class, you can directly jump into the practicals now. Siddesh, is there a difference between nationality and citizenship? Citizenship, primarily, you as such, technically, yes, there is a difference per se. You are beholding the constitution, being a citizen of that country, and the voting right also primarily can be is available only to a citizen. Nationality can be given you for other limited privileges. So that is a possibility. Like you can be considered as a national of a particular country, but without what? Without the voting right. Like for example, Sachin Tendulkar is a national of Australia, but he does not have what? The voting right privilege in Australia. So that sort of distinction arises depending upon the constitutional framework of each country. Sometimes it does not have any distinction, sometimes it does have. This class is available, Karnesh. This class is available on YouTube. Yes. This classes means which classes? This is, you are already in YouTube. What is the difference between offshore funds covered in 115AB and FII? Just Divya, to answer it very quickly. Differences: offshore fund, you can just say a small company, and FII, a big company. As simple as that. A small company, offshore fund; big company, FII. That is how the SEBI recognizes between the two. Thank you, Sudesh. No, Dhruv, from date to date. You have to do from date to date. Don't take calendar month. Go with date to date. No, it does not cover, Divya. Yes, Rangesh, you can ask. Mansi, which topic to be given more attention to? Tomorrow's class timing, first I'll tell. Tomorrow's class timing is same, 2:45. Okay, 2 o'clock you are done with your FR lecture, and 6:15 I suppose you will have some lecture is there. I think law, or I think law, SFM, whatever it be. So that is what it is. Mansi, which topic to be given importance? I'll give in this channel ABC. Okay, ABC. I hope that all of you have gone through my PGP class also. PGP class, for which I have already have given the 3 class link in our Telegram channel along with the notes. Hopefully all of you would have gone through it. The 3 part A, part B and part C, and along with that I have given you the notes. I think that was put up 2 days back. So I think 28th or 29th, 28th of May, around that date, we have already put up in my Telegram, in your Telegram, in CA Final RPL Telegram channel, that 3 class A, B and C, part A, B and C of PGP ICDS partnership is there along with the PDF notes. Hopefully all of you would have gone through the same. So Mansi, then towards the end I will tell you the ABC. Somewhere around 15th of June or so, I will come up with my ABC as well of each topic. Tomorrow class timing 2:45. Rangesh, 10% interest in another entity being firm. Yeah, Rangesh, yes, LLP is also included. Sunita Lakshmi, sir, 33AB, the deemed income under 33AB should be added before. Actually, technically speaking, Sunita, it should be added always before. Technically speaking, if you read the act. ICI in one of the MTP, they have done it after that. In one of the MTP, deemed income. But if you see the deduction, when they say about 33AB, it says that they have said that 40% of PGBP before the deduction of section 33AB. So therefore the PGBP has to be before the deduction of 33AB. If it is to be before the deduction of 33AB, it means it is after the deemed income of 33AB. It is what? After the deemed income of 33AB. Otherwise, they should have written like this: 40% of PGBP before section 33AB. If they would have written like this, 40% of PGBP before section 33AB, then that argument of that deemed income will come later would have prevailed. But what they have written, 40% of PGBP before the deduction of 33AB. Because of this particular phrase that has been employed, we will have to conclude what? That first add the deemed income, and then thereafter you will arrive at that maximum upper limit, and on that the deduction would be given. So Sunita, this is what you make the reference of that one, that 33AB, the deduction is 40% of PGB before the deduction of 33AB and not before 33AB, and hence we are taking what? Taking the deemed income before the calculation of deduction under section 33AB. We are considering deemed income before the deduction of the before the calculation of deduction under section 33AB. Okay. Babita, is there any chance to remaining MTP discussion possible? Questions are really good. Thanks a lot for all revision. Thank you. Yeah, Babita, I have told you that last week I could not do the MTP videos because of the ill health. This week, after your lecture gets over, once I am done with your lectures also, I'll start putting up the MTP then. And in the afternoon, the same time, those who wish to come live, they can come live in that group. So you can come live for that 1.5 hour session on the discussion of the MTPs. You can definitely come do that. So after this, 2-3 classes are over of mine right now, which is the remaining lectures. Then I will do the MTP discussions. Balance all the MTP discussion. 2 MTPs I am done, and remaining 5 MTPs I'll wrap it up one by one very quickly. And I will do live. Interest for equalization levy is written as 1% for every month or part thereof. How can it be date to date? Not date to date, Tripta. It implies that, like for example, 7th of April, 7th of next month is there. I make the payment not on 7th. I make the payment on 10th. So I will take full 1% because the 3 days part of the month, then the delay is for 3 days. That part of the month will be taken as 1 month. And therefore, you will take full 1% for the 3 days, which is the delay. You will take for 1 month. Tripta. This is a tridip. This is what is the interpretation. So 3 days also 1 month. Bonds referred. Yes. If it is that those bonds. Shubham, test series is not opening on DSTC app as it expired. Please guide. I'll just ask them in this regard. I'll do something on this one, Shubham. Babita, okay sir, I will join the group. Thank you so much. Okay. Shraddha, so the interest computation in case of equalization levy, yes Shraddha, not like the way we have done it, 2011A. This goes after the expiry. After the expiry, we will start calculating the interest. Upasna Gupta, the case law part I will put across. Before 15th of June itself, I will put across the case law lectures. Okay, so case laws I am going to put it across. Right now, Anjali, it is only available for the Android users, which is there as far the app is concerned. But I'm just, Anjali, I'm typing one number. You can just please ask their situation. Please resolve your query there. I'm just typing one number to our technical team. Please ask them. Anjali, I have given one number. You can ask there for the technical support what exactly best can be done for iPhone thing. Thank you, Shraddha. Fine, friends. I hope that then, primary students, and let's then meet up tomorrow, 2:45. Math would be our discussion point. Math would be our discussion point. Fine, students. So this is what it would be. Also, I've seen where interest of equalization levy is deposited on 3rd of next month. 3rd of next month. But interest was charged for 2 months. 3rd of next month means what? Like you have got 7th of next month as a due date. So 3rd of next month you have already have done it before. Thank you, Pavitra. I'm not getting your query, CB. You can ask me in the Telegram part. Okay, students. So let's conclude then in this context. Let's conclude then. Tomorrow I'll see you students then for math, and let's meet up for the math lectures for tomorrow. Thank you.